Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Turin here, and welcome to another entry in our randomly generated army cast. So for those of you that haven't seen these games before, this is essentially a game type where I go into a quick battle and I randomly generate my army. There are a few conditions though. For example, if I do get a lord or a spellcaster of some sort, as you can see here, I do have a chaos sorcerer lord with shadows. I'm allowed to get rid of some of the abilities I'm not going to use and then spend those resources on chevrons. But aside from that, everything is completely randomly generated, and you know, guys, it makes for some pretty interesting games. So we're going to be facing off against the Beastmen player over here. So as far as my army composition, or not exactly what I chose, but what I was given, I got some Chaos Warriors with great opens here who actually aren't going to be terrible against this Beastmen composition, because a lot of Beastmen players are going to bring Bestigor herds and Gorbulls. I almost had a girl bull, but Bestigor herds and Gorbulls and things like that, which do have, you know, 100 plus armor, so having a little bit of AP on these guys was a pretty nice gimme here. Also on top of that, guys, I did get some Chaos Trolls. Now, I wasn't lucky enough to get the armored variants, but I do have the unarmored variants, which still are going to be very good against Bestigor herds. Granted, they have very, very low leadership, but I do have quite a few heroic units. I do have a Chaos Sorcerer Lord, and then I was a, you know, gifted Exalted Hero here. And did I get some Aspiring Champions? I don't think I did, so that was a little bit unfortunate, as it's always nice to have those guys with trolls. Aside from that, this was probably the biggest boon I got in this random generated cast here. I got some Chosen with Halberds with silver chevrons, so these guys are just absolute beasts. Right now, they actually have 93 leadership, 39 melee attack, but more importantly, they have 58 melee defense, pretty good armor-piercing damage. You know, again, they are not going to do as much as the Great Open variant in terms of just pure armor-piercing, but they do have a massive anti-large bonus of 26, which is pretty nice considering my opponent does have a Cygor, I believe, over there. Yeah, it looks like he has a Cygor, and aside from that, the Gorbull is a large unit as well, so they're going to get a pretty nice perk against the Gorbull. On top of that, I did get an Exalted Hero right here. I got some Chaos Poison Warhounds and Chaos Knights, which was a huge gift, because regardless of the matchup, this is something I almost always bring anyways. Chaos Knights with Hounds. The Hounds can break the charge and apply the poison, and the Chaos Knights can come in and clean up, which is a really, really nice synergy. Also, I did get some Chaos Chariots down here. They do have an anti-infantry bonus. I don't believe they're the heavy armor-piercing variant. I think there's a more expensive version, the Gorbeast Chariot. But these ones still going to be pretty good against the Beastmen, as they do have a lot of infantry, and I believe they do have a true... Do they have a true anti-infantry bonus? Let's go ahead and check while we're here, guys. So it looks like they do. So they get plus 18 versus infantry. I also got a Manticore, a Chaos Sorcerer Lord with shadows for my leadership, and I got a Hell Cannon, which I was trying to manually aim, but I just like shanked it like 3 or 4 times. So yeah, I was pretty bummed about that. But I do have some Marauder Horsemen up in the front, not the Horse Masters, but still a little bit of poke and utility never hurt. So for my opponent's army, he actually has, it looks like 3 Gorbulls, an entire front line of Bestigors. He looks like he has some Gore herds in the back, and he also does have 2 Ungor Spearman herds, which, you know, aren't bad against Chaos. If I do bring like Shaggoths or things like that, they're pretty good for mucking up Shaggoths and allowing the Gorbulls to get in there and really do good work. So he does have Malagor the Dark Omen and a Cygor. So guys, let's get right down to business. And I actually did hit that one that I was manually aiming, so I was pretty proud of myself, because I'm really terrible at that, guys. I'm sure any of you guys who've seen me on stream have seen how like truly awful I am at that. So the Cygors are continuing to throw in here, and it looks like they're getting a nice hit on my Chosen here, which was a huge bummer. They actually looks like they took out 8 models. This is undoubtedly my most powerful unit, so that was a big setback initially, but you know, nothing to cry about, guys. And we do have these Marauder Horsemen here just to kind of poking at these Gorbulls, and thankfully Gorbulls can't carry potions, so any damage you do initially is going to be able to do pretty good work for you. So I do engage these Gorbulls with the Trolls, which probably wasn't the best bet, but still they do have armor piercing, and you know, they do have regeneration, so if they take a lot of beating here in the beginning, they're going to be in good shape. And you can also see the Halberds getting in here to kind of push these guys back, so a pretty good situation initially. So here in the front line, I have a very thin front line. I had Trolls, Halberds, and Great Weapons, but aside from that, I didn't really have any other frontline troops. That was definitely a little bit of a bummer. So you can see the Hell Cannon coming in, and these Chaos Warriors are going to charge in, and of course the Trolls are going to get a really nice clobbering on these guys. And Trolls have some of the coolest attack animations. You can see this guy coming right into the camera right there, which is always a pretty good time. So, you know, the Beasts are going flying, and you can see the Bestigors with their very low melee defense are going to take a lot of damage initially. Granted, they do give it right back. So in the front line, we do collide. I do have my Chaos Knights coming around, but you can see he just has so many troops that he's able to circumvent my flank and put some good pressure. So you put the Master Marauder Horseman on skirmish mode, but thankfully, guys, I do have the Chariots coming in. So the Chariots are coming in hot. Looks like my Chaos Knights intercept, so we get a nice little sandwich here, and you can see that these Bestigors are just going to get absolutely just punished over here. So they're down to 59 models, but again, once the Chariots actually get in there and ride through them, they'll take a little bit of damage, and the Chaos Knights get a pretty nice cycle charge as well. So over here in the back line, this was probably the best situation in the entire game. I was able to get my Chaos Feral Manticore over here just beating on Malagor. And Malagor is extremely squishy. He only has 15 armor. So probably, honestly, this Chaos Manticore, if left unimpeded, could kill Malagor. And yeah, it looks like it actually is. So he summons a Manticore of his own, and he does bring some of his auxiliary troops in. But still, you know, Malagor took so much damage, and he's terrified, and he's running off the battlefield. So that was a great situation. I also, unfortunately, did a pretty cool little pit of shades over here. And you can see the Hell Cannon continue to rain fire. But those Bestigors were able to actually push off my Exalted Hero, which was a a bit of a bummer, but I do have the Shadow Sorcerer, so he did use the Occam's Mind Razor in the main fight. He's also diving in here and getting some good damage on some of these guys and pushing in. And over here in the main battle, you can see this Troll going down, unfortunately, but they're laying a little bit of damage here on the Scorbull, bringing it down to about half health. And thankfully, I do have Chosen, that just happen to have a ton of Chevron, so they just have immaculate leadership. So despite all that, they're still at 64 leadership. They're fighting tooth and nail against these guys. And also, I do have the Chaos Knights coming in with the Occam's Mind Razor, giving them huge damage. So you can see their weapon strength is up to 54 right now. The Hell Cannon continuing to shoot in as well, but his Cygor, let's see how many kills. It actually has 7 kills, which isn't great. So basically, this Manticore was just kind of lurking around here, and this was honestly one of the determining factors of the game, because the frontline engagement was pretty pitched, but it wasn't going that great, but the Manticore coming in and being able to snipe out Malagor. So he kind of had a choice. Do I just waste all these troops in the back protecting Malagor? And he definitely made some big mistakes here. He does summon a second Cygor, which is really rough, but you can see Malagor in here is just getting haunted by this guy, and he actually has, it looks like 290 HP. So one more attack. I probably should have stayed the course, but with the Manticore, I wanted to pull out and then cycle charge him again once he routed away from his friendly troops. But still, I think it would have been more prudent to just kill him there. So over here in the main fight, this is where it gets a little bit dicey, because basically all of his reinforcements are pushing in, and they're going to collide with my troops and muck down, because, you know, halberds and great weapons in general aren't very good for cutting through fodder units. So now that these Gorbals have a little bit of support, it's going to be much tougher. And you can see my Chosen here only at 41 models left. My other troops are still fighting, but you can see that Hell Cannon still getting really good value, actually up to 46 kills. And guys, I do have 4 Trolls in the back, and if you look at their healing right now, they're actually ticking up. So over the course of a battle, Trolls are very, very good, and I wouldn't say they're very, very good, but in atrocious battles, they can find a home. Granted, I wouldn't say they're a competitive pick in most matchups. So anyways, the Hell Cannon continues shooting here, and it's just slamming into the back of my Chosen, but it also is making good contact with these Gorbals. You can see, guys, my Chaos Knights have just been doing excellent work this whole game, and these are the variants that have the swords and the shields, so they have really high melee defense, really good sustained stats. So even against these Ungor Spears, which have an anti-large bonus, their melee defense is really going to keep them out of harm's way, you know, to a large extent here. So they still have 44 models. They're in great shape, but unfortunately, guys, these Cygors hit like trucks and have heavy armor piercing, and he does have 2 Cygors here, which is a very, very dicey situation. So I get a good charge in here, and you can see the rear charge really punishes the leadership of those Ungor Spearmen herds. And let's go ahead and see what else is going on. So I do have this Exalted Hero coming back. Definitely a mess in here, but this Chariot is up to 20 kills, which, oh, I shouldn't even say up to, but it has 20 kills. Not the best performance, but you can see that Hell Cannon coming in, and I get a pretty nice little charge on those Gorbals, so that's incredibly risky, because if he's able to just turn and get 1 or 2 auto attacks on this Chaos Sorcerer Lord, it's going to take huge HP, and you can see it's in a pretty dicey situation here. So over here, you can see my Master Marauder Horseman. I'm just kind of using to zone out his reinforcements, which is pretty good for a Skirmisher Cav, because these guys, their leadership must be so low, it's down to 29, so a few volleys here is going to do pretty good work. He does have a Gorbal coming back. I have this Hell Cannon. I do have some Trolls and some Great Opens coming back as well, but you can see my Chosen are actually routing off here, so that was a really, really tough situation. You can see the Chaos Knights continuing to fight tooth and nail. They did take quite a bit of HP damage, because my opponent does have 3 Gorbals, and oh man, this Chaos Knight does not look long for this world with Gorbal here. And the big issue was that he just had 2 Cygors literally just double stomping the yard right here, just laying a beat down on my Chariots, on my Knights, and they hit so incredibly hard with 300 plus armor piercing damage, if I'm not mistaken. But thankfully for me, I kind of just needed to wait it out, because one of these Cygors is a summon Cygor, and as you guys know, summon units do degenerate and quickly kind of kill themselves, basically. So I did have some Trolls coming back in, and the Trolls were able to just run in there and whomp that Cygor, or excuse me, that Gorbal, and actually kill him, which was huge. And then they're jumping on this other Gorbal here, but it was very, very risky, because again, these guys are just going to just absolutely beat these Trolls down. So if you look in here, they're just going to get crushed with these giant blue boulders. It's definitely not looking good for these guys. So they're down to, let's see how many, there's 4 Trolls, and I'm surprised they're still even fighting here, you know, considering how poor their leadership is. And you can see this poor Manticore is taking some huge boulders to the dome as well. So over here, it looks like the Chaos Knights are able to surround one of these Gorbals, but still, you know, they're not going to do the best against him, because they do have 38 weapon strength, but their armor piercing isn't the best. But thankfully, that Chaos Lord, it comes in with the standard die and is able to help them out, and we really, really need to just get these Gorbals off, because they're just so incredibly powerful. And if my opponent loses the rest of his leadership, because he already lost Malagor the Dark Omen, which was great. So if he loses to the Gorbals and their encouragement, a lot of the lower tier Beastmen units are essentially going to rout off at this point. So the Gorbal down to 9 leadership, but his other Gorbal buddy, as well as some Bestigor herds are coming in, and you can see the Cygor, that one actually just dies from pure degeneration, but the other one is coming in pretty hot, and guys, it still has 6,000 plus HP, so it's going to be incredibly hard for the Warriors of Chaos to finish that off at this point. He does have 53 Gorge herds here. Looks like I do have some Hounds that are kind of chasing down some of these Ungors, and it looks like the Ungors might actually rout off for the Hounds. It's pretty darn close. But my Chaos Sorcerer Lord and a few of those charges against the Gorbals and other things like that did take a ton of damage. You can see this Exalted Hero is just not about to have a good time. He just has the hordes of hell coming after him, literally. And here comes the boulder, and it looks like the Gorbals are just going to push into him. He's getting knocked over, and he didn't do terribly well this game. game. He kind of just got his ass kicked by some of those best scores earlier on, and then the Gorbals are just kind of tossing a salad, unfortunately. So looks like he does shatter there, but I do get the chariots coming in hot in the back. I was trying to rescue him because having, you know, that unit with 400 plus weapon strength there would have been nice, but unfortunately the chariots weren't able to rescue him. But guys, they actually have 71 kills and have accumulated several chevrons over the course of this battle. So truly, you know, turning out to be some MVPs. So with the harassment from the chariots, I'm able to reform ranks here, so you can see it's kind of the last stand. I do have some trolls and other guys, and these guys don't have like charge defense against large, so you might as well countercharge. And you can see they're going to get in here and just go tooth and nail, like fighting to the bitter death. And you can see there's another Gorbal coming in, some best scores, but the biggest threat is that big Cygor. So, you know, one of my best hopes was to just kind of kill like all of the small stuff and hope that I could get like an army losses route. But you can see the double Gorbals just fighting against these Chaos Warriors. The Trolls actually putting up a pretty good fight, and they actually have 20 leadership. And it looks like the Trolls there are actually able to kill that Gorbal. So a pretty epic death for that guy. But still, a lot of the Gore herds and the Cygor here is coming in. You can see there's some best scores in the distance coming back as well. And that Hell Cannon just narrowly missing. And this thing's just been shooting the whole time, actually racking up about 61 kills. But my Chaos Sorcerer Lord only has 31 leadership. It actually tanked down to 20 there, which wasn't great. And you can see the Chariots actually just pure desperation mode coming in and ramming the back of these Bestigors. Also that Chaos Sorcerer Lord coming back in, but man, this was just such a sketchy situation. Look at that Hell Cannon just making direct contact with that guy, and it actually looked like it staggered him a little bit, but still, the Hell Cannon isn't going to do huge damage against him, although, I guess proportionally speaking, in terms of his HP, that's not a bad amount of damage. So, I do have some Chosen with Halberds who came back in the fourth quarter and are just fighting, and this is probably like the best unit to have in this situation. They're going to fight to the end with those high chevrons. You can see those Hell Cannons, you know, doing some pretty good work for me, but the Chariots I definitely needed to pull back and chase down his units that were returning. Having them sit here, and it looks like that's actually what I ended up doing. And some Chaos Knights did come back, and I was able to break that Gorbal, and he only has 200, not 200 leadership, but 200 health left. They're able to push him back, but you can see the Cygor is still in good shape, but that Hell Cannon just narrowly missing him again. These Chosen, unfortunately, did get terror routed, but that means they'll most likely come back because it's actually just like a Terrify mechanic, and they're going to do so good against this Cygor here with their anti-large bonus. They'll turn around shortly, and you can see over in the back, the Pimp My Ride Chariots doing an absolutely amazing job of just routing these troops off. And I had run out of ammunition with my Marauder Horsemasters here, or excuse me, Horsemen. So they're coming in. They got their little spears, and they should be able to do okay. So they charge in, knock some of these guys back, and you can see, you know, their leadership is low enough on these best scores that any sort of rear charge like that's going to do pretty good. Though I needed to pull them back quicker, because if they do fight and sustain combat versus the best scores, it's going to give them the trigger of winning. So if something's winning in combat, I believe it does help the leadership. So the Chariots come in there and actually just kind of seal the books on those guys. So if we look back over here, you know, I didn't really have much left. I just had these Chosen. I had the Hell Cannon, thankfully, which was unbreakable, so maybe the Chaos Dwarfs could have came through in the clutch, but you can see the Cygor is wavering. He's taking a ton of damage from these very elite Chosen, who still, despite only having 14 models, have 31 plus leadership. He takes a Hell Cannon shot right to the dome piece, and he is just going down against these guys. And it looks like that is all she wrote, so an incredibly close battle, like just literally nothing left on both sides. But one of the only reasons I think I was able to pull that out, you know, with the randomly generated army, as you guys can see, is because Malgor died so early. He literally summoned a Cygor and just after that got killed by a Manticore and routed off the battlefield. So that was a huge boon. If he had like a Morker or something like that, that would have been a very ugly match, I think. Or it would have at least, you know, been closer. Granted, I would have changed the way I played, but still, it would have been a very difficult situation to get around a Morker the Shadow gave. So Malgor, definitely a little bit of a gimme there in that respect. But regardless, very well played to my opponent. Mark, look forward to seeing you again in Ladder. And hey, I hope you guys enjoyed this randomly generated army cast. Let me know your thoughts in the section below. I'll most certainly be doing more, most likely on my stream. So if you guys want to see them live, join on the stream, and I'll make sure to cast them afterwards as well. So thanks again for watching, guys, and have an excellent weekend. Take care.